For years, laws have been established to keep everything in order. They are revised from time to time according to the situations at hand. Just now, the Supreme Court announced the unanimous decision on magazine lawsuits. Let's look into the details. The U.S. Supreme Court reached a sweeping judgment regarding a magazine case with far-reaching implications, drastically reshaping the gun control debate and constitutional rights. By addressing the responsibility of gun component makers and expanding the reach of the Second Amendment, this choice revolutionizes how we think about weapons ownership in open areas. Central to this contentious debate resides Farms Mags, the legal dispute that fixates national focus, while sparking varying perspectives on firearm management, individual liberties, and community well-being. The focal point of the trial that led to the unanimous decision on magazine lawsuit was holding enterprises responsible for producing and distributing gun pieces that may become involved with unlawful acts committed by outside entities. How far producers must shoulder responsibility due to others' improper product handling will become evident by examining this instance. By extending interpretations of the Second Amendment and setting restrictions, the Supreme Court's united verdict handed down last June affects the capacity of politicians to limit publicly owned weapons. A surge of litigation ensued, contesting the legality of existing firearm rules and prohibitions nationally. Standing firm against a New York law, the U.S. Supreme Court reached a landmark decision in favor of broader firearm protections by interpreting the Constitution's guarantees. This pioneering judgment encourages challengers to prevail over gun controls. Subsequently, they've secured successes in opposition to permissions for carrying licenses and constraints on assault weapons. Pro-firearm forces effectively harness the recent Supreme Court decision as a decisive element. Relying on the recent victory, we're pushing back against Illinois restrictions on attack rifles and excessive ammunition holders through an expedited plea. This appeal's consequences may resonate extensively, with the outcome potentially setting a precedent for subsequent bans countrywide. An appellate victory for the appellants may prove pivotal in advancing the interests of those favoring fewer firearm restrictions. This instance may seem detached, but more cases exist amidst firearm statute issues. During these proceedings, the court analyses diverse legal situations related to weapons legislation. Efforts to overcome restrictions on large magazine capacities are included, which feature prominently in several prominent mass shooting incidents. From a broader perspective, these decisions will likely shape how we view the rights of companies and individuals involved with guns. This development complicates the complex conversation around guns by introducing another legal front. This case raises the question of how gun ownership influences crime rates through media influence. If the Supreme Court takes up this issue, its decision may function as a crucial reference point regarding how much blame publishers should bear due to the impact of their output. This suit's ability to simplify court procedures makes headlines unique to others. By skipping unnecessary steps, these individuals strive to achieve speedier resolutions. Urgent and severe business awaits discussion during the upcoming conference scheduled with the Supreme Court. The court's verdict could significantly impact gun control lawsuits and shape discourse surrounding firearm responsibility over time. A deeper inquiry into the accountability of firearm component producers vis-à-vis illegal actions perpetrated by unrelated individuals holds far-reaching ramifications, touching upon the essence of the Second Amendment. Amended gun laws and restricted government control create momentum for legal objections. Following the Supreme Court judgment, pro-gun groups are taking advantage of this opportunity to legally contest weapons and magazine limitations, threatening to revolutionize the entire spectrum of gun controls. As the legal fight continues, it hangs unresolved how forthcoming Supreme Court choices may shift the balance between citizens' rights and society's well-being under weapon management rules. From this decision's perspective, wider repercussions become apparent, stirring controversies surrounding established firearm limits and compelling a more detailed study of constitutional guarantees regarding weapon ownership. The current legal battle revolves around the dispute in Illinois regarding the ban on assault weaponry. By acknowledging individuals' ability to protect themselves through the open carrying of weapons, the Supreme Court maintained a neutral stance regarding the legality of state-enacted constraints on firearm possession. This clear pathway challenges gun ban laws according to equal protection principles. In front of the Illinois Supreme Court, There is a debate over whether or not the state's assault weapon restriction unfairly differentiates between diverse populations based on the principle of equal defense under the law. Their disagreement centers on a clause permitting past weapon ownership, which creates two categories of eligibility: those allowed to retain firearms versus new applicants. This legislation also allows law enforcement agents to acquire weapons typically banned. Amidst the panorama of other states and federal districts enforcing comparable weapon prohibitions, this controversy comes into focus. The focus shifts to Judge Amy Coney Barrett, currently weighing action related to Illinois' prohibition on assault weapons during appeal proceedings within the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Supported by the National Association for Gun Rights and a regional weapon vendor, both plaintiffs insist that the regulations transgress the Second Amendment's assurances. Throughout this protracted lawsuit, numerous improvements have emerged, including a brief reprieve sanctioned by Judge Stephen P. McGlynn, based in the South District of Illinois State Courts. In contrast, the plaintiffs have filed an appeal arguing that the prohibited firearms, such as AR-15 rifles commonly employed for legal activities, will likely be acquitted following a more detailed assessment. To avoid getting involved immediately, the highest court in the land chose to hold back, allowing local regulations to go into practice. Central to the discussion is how these weapons restrictions define them. Now that the Supreme Court has a conservative majority, this marks its inaugural encounter with gun control regulations. Entrenched in constitutional rights, gun enthusiasts contend that such legislation threatens a dangerous legal precedent. A mass shooting in 2020 with an AR-15 style rifle was involved, resulting in the implementation of these bans in Illinois. These events reignite long-standing passions within our communities regarding public safety versus individual rights. Stricter gun regulations proponents claim that preventing easy access to powerful weapons will lessen the damage caused during violent episodes. Supporters argue for balancing the protection of the Second Amendment with prudent controls aimed at minimizing casualties. Many advocates contend that everyday people use their guns safely and sensibly for pastimes like competitive shooting or protecting themselves and their families. In the face of continued litigation, the public anxiously follows the legal system's forthcoming handling of complicated matters. The verdict will shape the legal framework for handling gun ownership rights nationwide if upheld. Not only does the case delve into complexities surrounding constitutional rights and public safety, but it also underlines the continued relevance of striking a fair and well-balanced stance on gun control within a community facing competing beliefs. In the wake of the united verdict announced by the Supreme Court concerning a publication dispute, momentum toward reformulated firearm regulations has been reignited. Focusing primarily on accountability surrounding firearm components, this instance casts light upon adjacent instances before the Supreme Court, each with far-reaching implications regarding gun laws, corporate habits, and judicial safeguards. Analyzing these two situations allows us to see how they illustrate the intricately woven fabric of legal provisions, personal privileges, and collective priorities that drive discussing weapons possession. There may be a discussion about holding legally responsible gun owners with restricted capacity magazines in these situations. Diving deeper into the world of firearm magazines, we find that it revolves around KCI, encountering litigations concerning illegal actions linked to their product. Our subsequent inquiry explores captivating issues surrounding suppliers' potential liability toward users influenced by third parties with their goods. How will these instances affect the firearms market and current legal standards? A key point central to this discussion is responsible individuals bearing unnecessary weight due to irresponsible actions regarding firearms. Proponents argue that restrictive measures against these magazines disproportionately affect lawful firearm aficionados, rather than resolving underlying factors contributing to gun-related incidents. Not only do these legal limits shed light on guns' regulatory frontiers, they simultaneously investigate how individuals and societies intersect with safety concerns. In contrast, the instance concerning KCI highlights a broader applicability of legal protection afforded to gun producers and content creators. Safeguarding these businesses from litigious action, the PLCAA grants immunity to gun producers and sellers when their items become involved with unlawful deeds. Meanwhile, the legal fight involving KCI brought forth an ambiguity regarding this shield. specifically concerning whether magazine parts, like those made by KCI, fall under its purview. Magazine's lack of protection under PLCAA creates controversy, inviting discussion on the law's meaning and impact on gun parts. Seeking legal validation via the Supreme Court, KCI simultaneously strives to confront a more comprehensive array of ramifications. The organization believes that the PLCAA's effectiveness relies on including magazines within its protective scope, thus undoing the entire logic of the Act if these vital components are left outside this coverage. If successful, this lawsuit might change existing rules governing producer obligations concerning the PLCAA's treatment of various firearm parts. Through this synchronization of interests, KCI's case enhances the alignment between lawsuits and broader gun reform agendas. For those pushing for tighter firearm laws, this development holds great significance. With these specific conditions, the case will encounter the Supreme Court come September, when ordinarily it doesn't consider cases at such an initial phase. Unlike typical situations, the distinct nature of this case makes it essential to consider its implications on lawsuit filings against gun-connected companies carefully. When these situations coincide, a turning point in the conversation regarding weapons legislation, personal privileges, and duties arises. Although the magazine lawsuit initially gained notice due to firearm part liability concerns, it has led to a broader examination of complex legal conflicts involving constitutional rights, industrial procedures, and legal safeguards. Balancing competing interests while maintaining fairness, the Supreme Court deliberates on precedent-setting matters with significant impact. Subscribe to this channel for more latest news about law and order. By producing this unified verdict, the Supreme Court sets off a series of legal aftershocks, sparking public examination of the intricate web of firearm legislation and its extensive repercussions. For more news about legal decisions made by the Supreme Court, click on the video links popping up. See you there soon.